Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fridays with Sue and Steph. And today we're going to hit a topic that just I feel like it never goes away. It's really so complicated. Siblings. I mean, the thing about siblings is they displace you. So in my house, the most conflict relationships are with the older one and the one right below them. Like it's a total birth order kind of relationship. And they love each other. Like we've always seen that they love each other, but sometimes it was just unbearable in my house. And what I would say is that it started with that first sibling, which was my second kid. And that first baby was displaced in a really dramatic way. Like this cute baby walks in, and there was there was a lot of physical, like keeping that second kid safe for a while from that first kid. And in fact, I mean, I can't quite replicate it, but that second kid kind of almost had like a little tick when the older one walked by because there was so much shoving and
like a recoiling.
Yeah, it was a protective factor. It was like, if I just move away a little bit, do I get out of the way enough? And we laughed about it, but we didn't really. It was really, really terrible and tough to live through. And that continued and continues. My kids are all out of the house and I still get those phone calls. But what I can tell you is that I went through kind of every parenting style as it relates to raising siblings. And starting with, I think my first approach was, oh my God, stop fighting. Yeah, that doesn't do much. That does not
I don't know
stop
what you
the
mean.
fighting. And it also, in some ways, made everybody really pissed off because someone felt like there was an injustice, and I dismissed them all in one fell swoop. Like, you are all annoying me, and the facts of what's going on are not so relevant. I'll let you go. I have a few more. We can toggle back and forth.
Well, this is one of those times where I'm like, why are we both on? Because it's exactly the same. So the word I'd written down was dethroning. Like when that first one is dethroned, because that first one gets so much attention, and then all of a sudden this baby comes home. And I actually, if it wasn't hanging on my wall, I thought when I was looking at our topic this morning, I would have pulled down a picture where we have Zach hugging Ethan, but he's clearly in a chokehold. Like there's no, I'm going to show it to you soon when we get off. It's not even it wouldn't even go out for a vote. People are like, why are you even showing this to me? Like it's very clear. So trying to keep that one safe. And I was reminded of it when we were talking to one of our mentors who just had a new grandchild. And he said he spent 2 weeks saying to the other two, can you not touch her? Can you not touch him? Which was making me laugh, sort of cry. It's the same thing. I think, so same. We had to the stop touching her, but I think you have to go through that crazy and that whole thing to get to what you just said, which is the you're all annoying me, because so we're exactly the same. Then I have should I go into my next one? Because maybe
Sure.
It'll be a little bit different.
Sure.
Okay. So yes, definitely. And it was more as they got older that we would just kind of ignore and say, unless there's blood, don't come to me, and I think that I just finally settled in on a neutrality, which was you guys got to work it out. Go into a room, figure it out. You're both doing things to annoy each other. And then there became this playfulness, which only worked when they got a little older and old enough to understand sarcasm and that playfulness, where one of them would say oh my God, he's your favorite. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Actually, Lane's our favorite. You know what I mean? So trying to diffuse it. But I guess I stick to the only way around it is through it, which is unfortunate.
Well, so I did that second step, which was you guys work it out, which also, after reading Siblings Without Rivalry, I had this very strong sense that was dismissive in a way that hurt the kids. like to say, I don't, kind of like, not my problem, your problem, work it out. And so one of the things in that book, which I highly recommend, it was written a really long time ago by Adele Ferber and Elaine Maislish. And actually, I interviewed, I think, Faber's daughter, who
Yeah, I think you're
continues
right.
in that space. And it was really fun talking to her because that book meant so much to me. They also wrote How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. So both really good parenting books. And one of the suggestions in Siblings Without Rivalry was to give them each time to tell you their perspective, like what happened. And so I started this thing. I didn't do it all the time. And I still yelled at them in between and told them to work it out. But when I did this, it always worked. So I would sit them down at a table, whoever was having the issue, and I would say, okay, each of you gets your own time to tell us what happened in your perspective, and the other one doesn't get to talk. So the first one would go like, tell the story. And the one who had to go second was like dying because, of course, it's so wrong. That's not what happened. And they want to interrupt. And it's like, no, you wait, you'll have your turn. So the first one says everything. And then the second one has a turn. And the first one now has to sit and wait. And the second one says everything. And it was fascinating to me how that led to a resolution that didn't involve me, but gave each of them the feeling of being heard. Like, literally, there was one time at my table where two like high school kids sat down and each did this game, which seems like kind of shouldn't work. They each like screamed their story, had their chance, and then were like, so do you want to go out and get a drink with me? And I was like, what just happened? I didn't even open my mouth other than to set the rules and say, and they kind of each hurt each other. And something in there gave a little nuance to the hurt that was going on and a little less about you're a jerk. And it was miraculous. And to this day, like they call to complain about one of the other kids. And I just go, it sounds like you're really hurt.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it.
Yeah. It's funny. That book, I still have them in my top drawer. So like, I definitely like referred back to it many times. I don't remember what I used from it. Isn't that funny? But I do remember thinking like, oh, that was really good. Like
So I can't remember
things.
Yeah, I can't remember the other things I tried.
Yeah.
But what I can remember was this sense of like, if I don't listen, then each one feels wronged.
Yeah.
And if I do listen, somehow each one feels heard. They just feel heard. And like sometimes that's all it takes. And then a few times there were kind of like, after they each had their time, a little kind of trying to clarify, yeah, but I didn't say that, or I didn't feel that way, or whatever. But all of it was under this kind of, I'm here, Mom, to say that I love both of you and that I'm not saying you're wrong and you're right, which like I never do.
Yeah.
I don't know if my kids would agree with that because they might hear it differently from me.
Yeah.
My goal is to be Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I was thinking it goes back to, we say this so many times, is that like they just want to be heard and understood, and no different than every human being, wants to be seen. There you go. Your teen media in a nutshell. There you go. That's behind everything we do, right?
Well, it is a conflict resolution technique that works for any relationship. But I think having teenagers who are fighting at home, having kids who are fighting at home, it kind of feels like a parental failure.
Yes.
So it's like, and the worst is if someone shows up at your house, like someone unexpectedly shows up, or you're on the phone with them and this thing becomes very public. Not very public, but more public than you're willing. And like, there's just such embarrassment. Like, I bet your kids never do that, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
And when people tell the story about their families, they don't typically include this. So it does seem like no one else is having these same trials,
Yeah. It's funny. It's interesting when I'm talking to people with younger kids. And I was just on the phone with someone, maybe it was a client who just had a new baby, and she has two others that are like maybe 3 and 5. And she said, I'm so lucky because they play so well together. Like, so they can just go off and do their thing. I'm thinking, I remember when Lane was a newborn and being on the phone with the director of the childcare center where they went, and like just trying to protect the baby, and like kept leaving rooms because they were like throwing themselves at each other. And I was like, oh my God, no one's going to survive. Like, so much for values and all these things we want. I'm like, now we're just going for survival. Like that is the new goal and the new motto of the Silverman family. We're going to make it till their birthdays, like each year. That's what we're going to celebrate.
I think that's so true in general. Like even as a mother, sometimes I just felt like, and I think that also when I look at people with young kids, like don't set your goals too high.
Totally.
It's really physically demanding, you know, and like having all of these like professionals come at you to say, take care of yourself, make sure you're taking care of yourself. I mean, I know this is crazy, but I used to lock the door so the older sibling was outside and have the baby literally in the bathroom with me.
Yeah.
Like where was time to think about my needs? It didn't exist. It was about protecting everyone's safety.
Yeah.
That was it. Get through the day.
I have a friend who I may have shared this once before where she said like when she had all these lofty goals for raising them, like, and they're going to have this value and that value and da-da-da. And she's like, yeah, just survival. Now I've lowered, lowering expectations. Your teen tip number 2, lower your expectations.
At least during those times where like, it really is just so demanding. There's really there's no extra minutes to take like a breathing exercise.
Yeah. I know it's
just
true.
not there. Yeah.
It's so true. I've had that thought with random things. Like I'll go to visit my parents or something. And my mom, and this goes back years. Like my mom would be like flossing her teeth and she'd be doing like other, and I'm like, flossing my teeth. When will I have time for that again? Like stupid little, but I think of that all the time. I am flossing my teeth now because we sent our youngest to college. Now I can floss.
Now you can floss your teeth.
Yeah.
The dentist is going to be so proud.
I know, it's true.
My flossing experience was the playground where a woman was there with her kids reading a book. It was the playground near you, Mercer. And we used to call it the bumpy slide playground. And my kids loved it because they have these
I love that bumpy slide.
And so this woman is there reading a book and her kids are on the playground having a blast. And I walked over to her and I said, when does that happen? Like, to me, it was never going to happen. So like the idea that it could happen and that it like, is it next year? Just tell me when can I look forward to this? Like a book at the playground.
How about a book at the pool? I remember when I graduated to being a book mom at the pool. And I remember thinking like, so when are you like fairly confident they're not going to drown? Like I still remember one of my very good friends, my friend Heather, if it weren't for her, when I had Lane and had all 3 of them at the pool, and she would often just like hold the baby or have the baby, or a toddler, whatever she was at the time. Cause even like having 2 kids in the pool was hard to make sure no one drowned, when one was like sort of a proficient swimmer, but not really, you know what I mean? And then one who definitely was not, and then a baby, but I always say, they're alive, likely because of her.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And Adi Kumar, thanks for your comment. And anybody else who has comments, we love to hear from you. And we will see you next week. Have a good week.